Hello, everybody. Welcome to this brand new series and this brand new YouTube channel. And this is my first English language video, so I'm really excited to dive in. I'm going to be doing some recreational programming videos in this channel, and in this series specifically, we're going to be doing a backend framework from scratch using ReScript. ReScript is a language that compiles into JavaScript, think something similar to TypeScript, but the ReScript is purely functional, right? So it has a couple of things that are very interesting that I really want to learn, that I really want to understand better, and I also want to understand a lot better backend development. Not only like doing an express CRUD, but actually understanding how things work under the hood. So if that's something that interests you, or maybe you only want to hang out, seeing somebody code, seeing how's the creative process of somebody else, I think this is going to be a very interesting YouTube video for you. Anyway, yeah, let's get started. Thank you for being here. Okay, ReScript. There's a couple of overview of what it is. I think maybe we can check that out. Fast, simple, full type JavaScript from the future. I couldn't agree more. It's very nice to work with it. I think you need to use it a couple times and be like, wow, this is really a lot better than JavaScript. And also the type system, personally, I like it a lot more than the TypeScript one. It has a couple things missing, especially on the documentation side. A lot of docs are missing or incomplete, or you're not actually quite able to understand how it's supposed to work, and it's more of a try and see what happens, right? Maybe you could have known Reason ML. I think I already have the link here. Reason and ReScript, for all practical purposes, are the same thing. There are a couple of differences, but they don't really matter, right? You can see Facebook. In fact, it was invented, both Reason and ReScript were invented by, well, not invented, created by the same guy that created React. So it's very good. It has a lot of good people behind, very smart people behind, has a lot of tooling that's very good. You can see it has a lot of really good VS Code integrations. I'm not going to use VS Code, but if that's the tool you use, ReScript is really good on the tool side. Yeah, let's check the docs. Get started. Jenta, that's fine. Overview. Language features, build system. I guess language model. Sorry. Bless me, I guess. Yes. New project is exactly what we want. Yes, we're going to start a new empty project. npm create, I think it is like this, and we're gonna name our project. How should we name it? Glizzy God 3000. No, that's glug. No, that's too obvious. Something like a CD, right? Like CD's nuts. Something like that would be interesting. CD backend, CD end. How should we name it? Glizzy 3000. I actually kind of like that. You know, because it's kind of funny. Nah, maybe not. How should we name it? My ReScript app. No, that's boring. Something fun. Let's act like we are not creative at all and just ask funny names for a JS library. It must be vulgar. What does the Chinese gods let us know? Let's see. It must be vulgar. It doesn't want to tell us. It doesn't want to tell us what's up. Okay, I guess the Chinese gods say no. Okay, there you go. Some humorous. Fab.js, that's good because I'm fab, so fab would be good. That would be. Wanker.js, that's good. Shard, I like this one. I like that one. Let's put it shard, so it's not too much on the face, right? But shard. Reshard. Ah, that's good. Make it only contain. Okay. Reshard. Just reshard's fine. Reshard. I want the basic. That's actually really good. You can do Vita next. That's really good. But no, I want basic one. Just Node.js library, yes, 11.4, yes, of course. Creating the project, thank you very much. CD, no, it's for ls, CD reshard, perfect, clear, okay. If we check what's going on here, you can see it has the node modules, and if we do ls/c, so you have a single file called demo.rs. And there's a reason why I have two tabs. This is very important here, because if I now do here nbib, so this is going to be kind of like my main window where I'm going to be coding. Right, I have the console log. You see here ReScript looks very similar to JavaScript, and over here what I'm going to be doing is the compile. Why is it not working? Reshard, and now there you go. And something I want to mention is that it's really fast. The compile time is really fast. Obviously, the first time is not that fast. It took a second, right? But if you compare it to TypeScript, like it takes a second to do like 6-7 files, right? Very, very quickly becomes really slow. And if I do, for example, here change hello world ReScript, took easy 34 milliseconds. That's so fast. It's crazy fast. Okay. Now the other window here, I'm gonna be actually running the app, which is gonna be git no, sorry. What did I do? Git npm no, not even that. Node demo, right? It's node source demo. Yeah. Hello world. There you go. You see. Now, if you want to check what this thing is compiling, sorry, we could do what's going on here, demo rs.js, and now that's what it's getting compiled in JavaScript, and now we'll run it on Node. So that's really good. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to do a backend framework, and Node.js has a really good HTTP library that comes out of the box, and that's kind of how you want to build the backend framework, right? And so you have this object that's called server, right? It's a class. It's not an object, it's a class. So it's called server. If I remember correctly, it's just server. That's it. And you initiate this class, or you instantiate a server by calling a function called http.createServer. And createServer is a function that receives another function, and that has, let's put another color, let's put like a black background. There you go, perfect. And and we're gonna treat this function that it receives in the parameters kind of like a black box, right? The black box is going to be our framework. Here's gonna kind of like where we hijack the Node.js stuff and we put like a different facade for the consumer. So this function receives two parameters, one called request and the other one being response, and they have different types, which are classes in the HTTP module. We're gonna take a look at them too, and this returns a server object, right? I think it actually is a void. And but create server does return a server object, right? So we're gonna be doing this a bit better. Why did the arrows went all crazy? Okay, I wanna make this a little bit better. Request response goes to the black void, which is gonna be our app, our library, and this returns actually void, right? We name reshard, so it's gonna be, let's put it white, and so it's reshard, right? Reshard is gonna be this black box over here, and this is its own thing, right? We're gonna send it to the back, which is passed to create server, which we're gonna name it orange, I guess. No, bluish. And this is create server. Okay, yes, that's really good. And we're gonna be pointing to here, and create server outputs the server. And let's put a new object over here, greenish, and this returns the actual server object, which we then call listen. Okay, that's good. That's pretty much what we need to do. And this already comes with Node, so we don't have to work on anything. What we need to do is build here, right? And so basically we want to hijack something that gets into the response, and then the user only interacts with this little element, right? And then it only has to do create server and response. Let's quickly do it here. For example, this is JavaScript. This is JavaScript side, so I can just show you kind of how the idea is. Okay, we're gonna do create server from HTTP node HTTP, right? Create server is the get rather than a red, of course it is, right? And if I do create server, what's going on here? Create server, yes, and then you can see it has a request listener and then server response, right? Which is called request listener. What's the other one? It's not there, but it doesn't matter. It's in common message and server response, okay? And we do res, and now we can do res.write hello world. Now do res.end, and that's it, right? And this is kind of like our very basic HTTP server on Node. Rec is never used. Sure, let's can do this. Okay, and if we do this, it's gonna. Oh, right. We gotta listen. Right. We gotta do dot listen. Right. Okay, this is as simple as you can do a Node server, right? And if I do go to Firefox over here and do localhost. Oh, I'm actually not sure what's my port, right? I gotta put a port here, right? It's gonna be 3031, right? And I think it should work now. Host 3031. There you go. Hello world. That's good. Okay. So this is how you do a server in Node.js. And we want to do it something like Express, which I think most people would be a bit more familiar with, and how to do. There you go. On how to do servers, right? You can see you do app.get and you have app.listen, but you know, I'm not sure how Express works, but if I had to guess, Express just is this, right? It's a function that returns this inner part, right? And maybe has a bit of a wrapper to do the listen, but this listen, I'm almost certain it's the same listen as in create server. I would guess that this app thing eventually just returns a create server, and the listen is that one, right? I might be wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and they build their whole HTTP model. I'm almost certain they didn't. And the API that I wish the consumer would have is, I think I want it to be very similar to Express in a way where they do like what's the application we call it? Reshard, right? Reshard.get and then the URL, and then we do the rec and res. But something that I would want it to be is that instead of doing res.send, I would wish you could return a value, right? Whatever you are returning as the controller, that's what the HTTP request sends back. I think that's how it's done on the Dino's default HTTP client. I'm not sure. Let's Google it. Dino HTTP. I think that's how they do it. Clearly I already read this at some point. Serve, yeah. There you go. You say the return new response, right? This is kind of like how I would wish to do the API for the request. The thing is that they don't handle the routes, right? You'd have to build your own route handler, right? And so our library should have that, right? Should handle all the routing. Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm gonna save because I want to delete what I did here, and now we want to start. Okay, now something to note here is that for you to interrupt with the JS libraries on ReScript, you have to do some bindings, and I think that's gonna be the hardest part right now, because there's a lot to type. There's a lot to type. I think it's called external. There's a snippet here. Oh, that's really good. Val external is a timeout. Is that what I want? Not really. No. I think it's module. And now I want to do node HTTP external. Let's create server, right? Create server. And now I want to type it, right? What's the type of create server? It's I think you gotta do something like this. Which is I'm gonna explain what I'm doing afterwards, because I'm not sure if it's correct what I'm doing, and it should be now equals to create server, right? If this is correct, which clearly it isn't, did you forget a dot? I don't know, maybe. What this should do in my mind, clearly I'm not writing it correctly, but what I'm doing in theory is that I'm creating a binding for an external function in the module node.http, which should point to create server, right? I'm gonna check the docs because I clearly don't remember how it's done. Docs, language feature, JS interrupt. Yes, JS interrupt. No, let binding. I think it's no. JSX pattern matching. No. Module import export. I think it's this one. No. Work with JavaScript import. Yes. It doesn't. Here. There you go. Okay. You see, module path external. Yes. I think it should work. Why is it not working? Does it work if I just remove this? It seems like it is working just fine. I thought I had to initialize these two. Apparently no. Okay, that's good to know. Now, if I, for example, here do a create server, okay, and now I want to call it, obviously, like the same way we did on the JavaScript file. If I do rec, I think I'm gonna do res, I think, and do it like this. What unit means is void, right? It means it doesn't return anything. And now I want to do res. I think it's not gonna work actually if I do something like this, right? It might work, but I'm not sure. Isn't res.write hello world? I think it's gonna fail because there's res. It doesn't have a type, right? But maybe it's able to get it. No, of course not. Okay, it doesn't. No, did it compile something? No, it did not. But you know, just so you can see kind of what it compiles, I'm gonna do console.log testing, and I'm gonna do now this. Right, because this should be a function. That should be like this, right? Something like this, right? Yes, like there you go. Now, what happened? What happened here, right? Because create server is a function that receives a function, right? And so when I'm typing create server, what I'm typing here is create server, the whole function, not just the parameter inside the function. So this is a parameter, and this is the parameter, and this is the function, right? Which would be, this is the parameter, and this is the function. Let's see what it compiled. Okay, you can see we did NodeJs which comes from NodeJs create server, the function, and this thing, right? So you can see it's very much like this is what we wrote before. Let's remove this thing. Let me rename this, by the way. Reshard.res. Yes. Okay, and I'm gonna do reshard, because it's not .res, it's .mjs. There you go. This isn't working because it's not listening to anything. Okay, there you go. Okay, now we need to type these two things, which is the incoming message and server response. Okay, let's do node HTTP. I already have it over here. And if we do, let's do create server, right? A lot of options. Rec and res. Now, I actually already know what rec is, even though it's, I don't know why they're not. It just requires a function. Returns HTTP server, that's returns a new instance, that's what I already mentioned. I kind of wish it would send me like a link to request listener, but I think function is just to the MDN to the MDN function thing. There you go. It's incoming message, right? Whatever. Right, incoming message, and I think that's Now the issue with HTTP incoming message and server response is that they are classes. They're classes, yes, but they extend another class, right? And so kind of like the parent class, it's gonna be the stream.buffer class, if I remember correctly. Is it just buffer? I think it might just be buffer. No, it's a stream. It's just a stream. Like they're all streams. What they receive is a buffer sometimes, but it's actually a stream. And a stream has two different subclasses or classes that also extend it, which would be, it actually has three. It has readable. Let's put another color here, bluish. It has readable. It has writable. And then it has something called duplex. It has duplex, right? And these three classes, they mean almost what you would imagine they mean. Maybe duplex is a bit less clear, but readable is all streams that can be read but cannot be written. Writable are all streams that can be written but cannot be read. And duplex are streams that can be read and written. Okay, and if I remember correctly, incoming message is only readable. It's only a readable stream. However, the outgoing message can be both read and written. And so it's actually a duplex. I might be wrong. I don't think I've checked the docs quite in depth, but I remember that's kind of how it is. So we can see that it's stream.readable. And I think stream.readable is it does inherit from something else. No, it doesn't inherit from anything else. It is a type of stream, right? But it's not a readable stream. That's the same thing. Okay. And I think if you go to the header of the stream docs, this is the stream, right? AP for stream consumers kind of tells you kind of what's our streams. Oh, okay, so I was right about the buffer thing, but I think kind of explains what's the difference here. I remember reading it at some point. Duplex and transform are streams that are both readable and writable. There you go. Okay, nothing particularly relevant here, but there you go. So if we wanted to write the type for rec and rest, and by the way, we need to do it because we want to be able to do rec dot, not rest dot write and whatever, right? And write to our server. We would probably need to type readable and writable and duplex and the entire stream and the entire buffer class, which I really don't want to do, right? I really don't want to write the whole thing. So I'm kind of thinking, what should we do? check some other stuff here. Server response. It extends outgoing message, right? So I think that makes it even harder. Then goes to stream. But not readable, writable. There you go. What type of stream? It just extends stream as a concept. Client request and server response. I mean, that's interesting, right? It means that this class of outgoing message is used for the fetch, like this is for the fetch function, and also for the server, the HTTP server response. So yeah, outgoing message will be used for two different things. That's very interesting, but it means that we will need to type these three things, and then we will need to type outgoing message and then server response, right? So that's a lot of typing, at least if we want to make it like really by the books. I know there is a binding already built, an HTTP binding for ReScript. But the point of the stream, the point of the video, sorry, is to learn to do it by myself. So I think if we just use the library, that's kind of boring, right? That's not the point. The point is to entertain Mr. God. The point is to have fun, right? So, okay, let's get it. Let's just start typing. I think the best solution would be not to type the whole thing. It would be just to type the things that we need, and we're gonna start building as we are needing more stuff. Something that would be necessary would be to take these bindings and take them out of the main reshard file and move it maybe to a new file, which I would guess it would be just HTTP, right? HTTP res. Yes. Pattern not found. In fact, what's going on here? I don't even know what's up that, but anyway. Okay. Okay. HTTP.res. Yes. And we want to grab this thing and paste it here. There you go. And now we want to do http.creator. Now, something really cool about ReScript is that you don't need to do imports, right? Everything is automatically in your project, and it just goes by the title of the file, unless you create a module, which is like something inside like a module inside a module, right? So every file is a module, and you have to name it with a capital letter. It must start with a capital letter. Okay. We have our file, and we have our external whatever. And now we need to type incoming message and server response. So I guess I would be doing a module, server response, right? And what do we need in server response? Something that would be really useful if we build the whole stream and buffer class and then build outgoing and server response is that there will most likely be some functions, some parameters that are going to be shared between incoming message and server response. And so because we're gonna be just writing them out as we need them, we might end up having like duplicated parameters that could be just joined into a single class. But if we reach there, we're gonna be, then we might build the buffer and stream class. But for now, I think it would be too much effort to build just the buffer and stream class for a couple of functions. Because I'm thinking, what functions do you need from HTTP, right? Maybe if you're not familiar with HTTP API, let's check it out. I think we need write head, write headers in plural, and an end, right? There's like a write.end. No, that's sorry, response.end. And I think that's it. From request, what do we need? We again need the headers, we need the path, and that's it, right? We don't need anything more. With the host, maybe, yeah, the host would be good to know. Not socket. Finished is deprecated. I think that says that. So we might not even have that much of an overlap between one class and the other. Server response. We need response.rec. Interesting. What is that? Is that the request, the original request? maybe we need that one. We need the get headers, yes. Status code we need, yes. Status code we need. Status message we need. Write. I think we need. Do we need write for server response? Yes, we need the write for server response. For the incoming message, it's actually fairly short. Fairly short. Socket status code. I mean, yeah, seems straightforward, right? We'll see. All right. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And okay, we need a type T. Now, a type T is kind of like the basic type of a module. I'm saying like the type of the module is T, right? It'd be something similar if we were in JavaScript to something like just doing a class, right? Class server response, and so whatever, right? And whatever parameter we want to put it, whatever, right? Whatever, I don't know, something. This would be TypeScript technically, but yeah. And something like this, right? And so the type of the server response is server response, that's its own type. But in ReScript, you don't, like, the modules cannot be called directly, right? Cannot be, there's not like a type for the module, so you have to send like, this is the type of the module. And the usual pattern to do it would be with type T. Right, type T, there you go, that's good. And now we want to do write and external. Well, why I'm doing external? Because I want to map this function to a JavaScript function. Like I'm not going to actually build like a whole wrapper around the NodeJs Http. I'm just doing a binding, right? I'm just connecting the code and just kind of like writing a typings file in TypeScript, right? External would be, and no, maybe we want to do write first. Write. And what does write have? Okay, write. It's a buffer or a string, if I remember correctly. Server response dot write. It's a chunk, right? Chunk encoding callback. Yeah, that's good. And the chunk can be a string, a buffer, or a uint8 array. Now my question is, does ReScript have a buffer? I think it doesn't have a buffer. It has an array buffer, but I think that's something different. Let's try it. It has a uint array, which is good. On sign int, where's uint? That's actually really good. Uint8 array. It does have a uint8 array, and I think what's a buffer? It's a uint8 array, isn't it? I mean, that's really good. The uint8 array is really good to know. But does it have from buffer? You see, from buffer, from an array buffer. Is a node buffer the same thing than a array buffer? That's what I don't think it is. You know, I think an array buffer is something from like the JavaScript standard, and I think this buffer is a node class. Yeah, it is. It's a global type for dealing with binary data directly. It can be constructed in a variety of ways. Value to prefill the new buffer with default 0. The new array. I mean, isn't a uint8 array basically an array of binaries, right? It's basically the same thing, right? It's just that this is a uint8 array. Instead of being like a binary per se, it would be like a byte. It would be like a series of bytes. Array buffer. Let's check array buffer versus node. Right, let's check what's the difference. You see, instances of buffer also instances of uint8 array in Node.js 4x or higher. dot buffer property directly. Interesting. I didn't know JavaScript had an alloc. No, it doesn't. Just the buffer class is an alloc, right? What does it even do? Jesus Christ. So buffer. And let's check alloc. I'm sure it's gonna be here. Alloc. What does it even do? Yeah, it allocates it pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting stuff. I have never used the buffer class more than, just moving things around, like getting a file and then converting it to a string. I've never actually checked the buffer docs. Very interesting that you do an alloc to give it a value and you put the base in it. But anyway, this says that the buffer is also an instance of uint array, so that's actually very interesting. Untyped array, so there used to be something here but it no longer exists. It's here, right? Also JavaScript uint array and typed array. What is a typed array? Let's check what is a typed array. A typed array object describes an array-like view or of underlying binary data buffer. There is no global property named type array, nor is there a directly visible type array constructor. Okay. Instead, there are a number of different global properties whose values are typed array constructor for specific element types listed below. Okay. Okay, so all of this stuff. Typed array objects. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, so I think for all practical purposes, we can just say it's a uint array, right? Okay. Let's check the docs. Let's close this one and let's go back to the... Where were we? To the incoming message. Server response. I think we're in server response. Server response dot write. I think we were right. Response dot and so it's a buffer or a uint array, which we know it's the same thing for all practical purposes, and a string. Now we can use an either monad. I believe ReScript has an either monad. Kind of like to do like the I want to say junction, but it's not junction. It's I forgot the name of this, but we can do the type union, right? You could do a type union there. It's technically not a type union, the either, because it's really just a left-right monad. Let's do monad. I think I'll probably find something here. I don't like to call it either. Some languages call data.either. I think it's really a bad name for it because it's really not an either. I think either for me it seems like a type union, which what you would have in TypeScript, right? You would say it's either this or this. But either is very different. First of all, it's a monad, and you have two constructors of it, which is called left and right, and it kind of like does kind of like a pattern matching sort of way, where you kind of select the left or the right. So yeah, it's I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, I like it, but maybe not for this specific case, because I don't want to have to lift the value out if you have two different values. Because that's not how it's done in JavaScript, right? So if we were to type it as an either, which I'm not sure if ReScript has, I think it does, but I'm not quite sure. The problem with it is that I will need to create a wrapper around the right function, where I actually then decide what to call on ReScript side. So that would be like an extra function call. And I want to do a clean binding, no extra noise, just a clean binding between ReScript and JavaScript. So I don't think the either, it's not, is it left, right? Fold left, that's not the same thing. Maybe. monad. I'm sure they do have it. I'm sure it does exist. I'm just not sure the name of it. Array data map, nullable, set, weak map, console, promise type. Yeah, promise. Async away, that's fine. But I believe this thing is a result. I think that's a monad that I know it exists here. The result. There you go. So option is a monad, right? Let's do option. Okay. None and some. Does ReScript not have an either type? Could that be possible? Does it have a maybe? Or is it option the maybe? I mean, option is maybe, right? Maybe it doesn't have an either. Okay, that's good. Maybe that's for the better. Okay. Okay. So it can be a string or a buffer. Now, how do we write that? That's the thing, right? Because you cannot do type unions in ReScript. You cannot say, right, this is a string. I think it's just this is a string or a buffer, right? Which you int array. Sorry, you int array, right? Dot t, and I think it's a string, right? Oh, can you do it? I don't think you can do it, right? And this returns a unit, and this should equal to write. Right? You see, it says this is not a thing, right? You cannot do type unions. You could do pattern matching. So, for example, you could do something like this. It would be type chunk equals I think it's something like this, right? Type chunk, it's a string which receives a string, and then it could be a buffer which receives a uint array. Uint.t, right? And now the type that's over here could be now chunk, right? And that seems to be working superficially, but the problem is that this type creates a tag. So we're gonna see just quickly what I mean by that. So for example, now if I do here, I think I gotta change the order for this stuff here. And if I do that request and response, yeah, this is type server response.t. Okay, if I now for example do something like this here, right? Rec, and by the way, chunk must also write t and chunk. Okay, then if I do rec, you see you have the write. That's good. That's in theory good. Now we have to choose, is it a string, is it a buffer? So it looks really good. I think that the DX for this would be very nice. But there's an issue once it gets compiled into JavaScript. So let's say I want a buffer. Maybe that's not a buffer, it's a string, because it would be pretty complicated to initialize a buffer right now. Let's do hello world, for example, right? Now, if we check, why is it not compiling? Because it's demo doesn't exist, right? It's reshard.res.mjs, right? Here's the issue, right? It put a fucking tag. I kind of wish ReScript had a smarter way of doing it, but it doesn't have a smarter way of doing it, right? It's just put a tag, right? And the thing is that if I was to write this, I'm sending to the HTTP server this entire thing, right? And that's not actually what I want to do. So unfortunately, the pattern matching way doesn't sort of work quite well. And so, okay, so that's it. So either monad, we need to build wrapper. Pattern matching, we need to build wrapper. So I think the best way to do it would be to say, okay, this is write buffer. And I will need to put here the buffer, right? Which we know it's a uint uint iterate.t. I'm kind of tempted to actually create a buffer type here. So it would be something like kind of like module buffer type t equals uint iterate.t, something like this, right? And then just do buffer. It seems a bit stupider because why would I do it? But just so I can have it look a lot more like the Node API, right? You would be calling a buffer, although it's the same thing. That a uint iterate. Okay, I think that's actually really like this. And now if I want to write a string, Jesus Christ, now shut the fuck up. External write string t, and that will be a string. And this is a unit and a still write. Now this little string over here, it tells the ReScript compiler what to compile this function to. So it would be write. And now if we check our reshard, this still doesn't exist because write doesn't exist anymore. It would be string. And we no longer need to say this. And if we check it out, that's really good. But not quite what we want. What we want to do is we want to have rec.write. This, right? So, yeah. I know there's like a template for it. So it'd be, I think it's send. I'm not sure really, but I think it's send. And now if I check it out, if I do this reshard.mjs, yes, there you go. So now we have our server. That's really good. That's really good. That's really good. Yes. Send external end, and this is nothing that returns a unit, and this is end. I think you can send chunk in end, and it sounds like I like the very last part of the HTTP request. I'm not exactly sure why that is. Like, I don't know what's the case for it, right? Why won't you send everything on the right? But yeah, I know that's how it is. Let's do response.end. There you go. You can see you can send data, which is again string, buffer, or uint array. Same thing as write, because it literally writes the last part. If data is specified, it is similar in effect to calling write followed by end. You see, I don't know what's the point of it. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's the point of sending a chunk to end. I think you do need the callback. I think the callback is something that might be useful. But you can also not specify the callback. Also, I don't know what exactly the callback does to end. So I'm gonna just do like a temporary thing. I need to give it a type. I guess what's the type of CB? It's a function that returns a unit, right? Something like this. Yes. Okay, so I'm just gonna put like a optional parameter. This is how you put an optional parameter in ReScript. You say squiggly name and then you put a question mark. Very similar how you would do it in TypeScript too, where you can do like a question mark thing, right? I think this is good. I think this is really good. And now let's try to do our server, right? Rec, and now we do write string, no end. Yeah, we want end, exactly. You see, yes, this is really good. This is really freaking good. Function applied to this function as type unit. String cannot be applied without a label because it's an optional. I don't want to apply the okay, maybe, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna have a callback. And then it's just unit. Compile T. But this function. Right, because I need T. Right, so sorry, I need the T. I think now it should work. Yes, there you go. With the callback, still. There you go. That's the important part. Has the callback. Yeah, I think this is really good. Now you can see that what it outputted is pretty much what we want. It's a server thing. Now we want to do a listen to this, right? That's the next part, to do a listen. And so in create server, we don't actually want to return a unit. We want to return a server type that has a write function, right? And so I guess we will need to do now module server write, and now we need to do type T, same thing, and now we need to do send external, and we want to do listen. Okay. Yes, and listen receives a type T. Yes, and then it receives a port, which is gonna be a number. I think it's called an int. Is it not an int? Is it a? Let's check the docs. Result set string type unit data array numbers big int float int. It's called int. Yeah, it's called int. C number. It's int with a capital N, I think. Should I put int at T? Really? No, that has to be another way to type a number. It has to be another way to type a number. Int is low case. There you go. Yeah. I don't know why it didn't show in the suggestion thing. Okay. T int, and this returns a unit. This actually returns a unit, and this is called listen. Yes, that's good. And now server response. Where is server? Create server doesn't actually return a unit. No. It returns a server.t. Yes. Okay. Now it cannot work because it's not a unit, which is exactly what now for the, let's say, function in the root, it must return unit. If it returns something else, it's gonna fail, right? So it's gonna be the top level function must be a unit. And so we actually want to do listen, and we want to put a port, which is gonna be 331, right? And I think this should work. Didn't it? Yes, it worked. It's so good. So good. And it worked. Yes, it worked. Yes, that's so good. So good. Let's try running it, because that's the that's the other part. See if it worked. 3031. Hello world. Yes. Yeah. It worked. Okay. Now baby steps. We just got an HTTP server running with ReScript. We built it from scratch. We didn't use any dependencies. So this is really good. And I also really like the DX, the developer experience is really good. You can see that the LSP do rec immediately suggests me options, which is exquisite. What I'm not sure if I like is the write string, write buffer thing. Maybe the write buffer should be just write, and the write string should be specified. I think that's kind of better. And apart from that, I think it's great. It looks really sexy. Really sexy. Maybe the server could be moved to a different file. Maybe it shouldn't be on the HTTP module. Same with buffer, really, but this is just this, so I think it's fine there. Yeah, this is really good. Okay, I'm gonna leave the video over here, and tomorrow we're gonna follow up with actually building the the framework. But I think it was very instructional. I think it was really good. It was a lot of fun. Okay, see you. Ciao, ciao. Bye, bye.